you had a spiritual awakening very quick. You don't want an actual fucking quantum leap because that means your entire reality has to dematerialize and a whole new one needs to
Yeah.
come online. And that is hard for the nervous system.
Unless you're prepared to integrate that properly and use it as a vehicle for healing, having an awakening without integration and without healing and without people to help you through it
Yeah,
can really make you lose your mind.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Alignment Academy. This is Kristen, your host. Alignment Academy is a school for your soul to grow and evolve. If you're new here, we talk about all things manifestation, spirituality, personal growth. We really are the intersection between entrepreneurship and spirituality and personal growth. The more that you grow, the more your business or your soul purpose will grow. And I'm just so excited that you came across the podcast. However you found it, just know that it's divine. I'm always talking to my spirit team to bring me the souls that are meant to hear these messages. I'm really excited for this conversation with Christina. It was actually one of my favorite conversations I've had in a really long time. We talked about feminine energy, spiritual awakening. We talked about what it takes energetically to build a really abundant business when it comes to money. We get into her story. And honestly, I think that you're just going to be able to feel the chemistry between us. We could have talked for 2 hours. So I'm really, really excited for you guys to listen to this one. As for me, as you guys can see, I am in San Francisco right now. You guys have probably seen online, and I've shared with you guys that I've recently relocated. So that's super exciting. Definitely in a new era of my business and my life. I have a new exciting offering that's coming out. And if you haven't seen yet, my Peru retreat is open for enrollment. I'm co-hosting it with Daniela in Peru, and Daniela is my mentor. She's also going to be my amazing co-host, and just so excited to bring a group of women to Peru. It's funny, like before we even really officially launched it, we have like 4 people in. So it's been such a ride and so exciting and so fun. But if you're interested in that retreat, then you can find all the information below. Other than that, I am just floating with the wind, trusting the unknown, taking life one day at a time. It's been really fun. So I'm excited to share more about my life changes and what I've been up to soon. But let's go ahead and get into the episode because it's going to be a juicy one. It's going to be a good one. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Christina, welcome to Alignment Academy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I know. I'm so excited too. I feel like we have had some parallels in our journey in the last 6 months. But before we get into
1000%.
everything, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've been up to for the last 10 years of your life? And yeah, just whatever you feel called to
Yeah.
share.
Yeah, for sure. It feels like I've had so many chapters in the last, I don't know how many years it's been an entrepreneur for. 8 years. I've been an entrepreneur. Chapter one, I started as a travel blogger in 2017 when I was working at my 9 to 5. Started it as like a passion project, little side hustle, because I was miserable at my job. And I had my little travel blogger era where I was working with tourism boards and brands around the world. In 2018, that's when kind of the core part of my business began. I created my first online course, essentially just teaching people how to do what I'd done. So growing and monetizing an audience online as a creator. Fast forward through the next, until basically this year, I grew an 8-figure online course business that served social media creators specifically. At the height of my business, had a team of 15 and really kind of made a name for myself in the online education space. And then a couple of years ago, I started feeling a little bit disconnected from my business and from what I was teaching. And so I know a lot of what we'll talk about in this podcast is kind of that journey that I went on of trying to figure out, why do I feel disconnected?
Mm-hmm.
What do I feel called to do? And ultimately sort of went down a long path of discovery in the last 9 months and shut down a lot of or 2 out of 3 of my courses, and really pivoting a lot of my direction kind of in tandem with like a lot of personal and spiritual growth as well. And that's actually how I found your page, because it's funny, for context, like if you met me 2 years ago, even a year ago, honestly, I used to be the most logical, masculine, not spiritual at all person. And my awakening happened within like a 3-month time span this year. And it was so disorienting. And that is how I found your page. So,
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah,
yeah.
so it's yeah, for context too, I found you when I think you posted something about like burning down your
Mm,
$12 million business.
yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, and at the time, I was actually going through a little death in my business
Mm,
where these programs that have, made me hundreds of thousands of dollars, I was like feeling so icky talking about them. And I like
yep.
literally felt like my skin was crawling out of my body when I like thought about hosting a call for them.
1000%.
And I just felt like really resonant with your message. And then I looked at your page and I'm like, this girl follows me. Oh, wait. So we have something in common. And so it was so cool because then I dove down into your journey and I was like, oh my gosh, this girl has such an interesting story. Because, most people have the opposite story where it's like they have the awakening and then they leave the job and then they build this huge business. But you like built the business and then you had your awakening.
Yeah, exactly. And I also, I mean, I'm so grateful for the way that it went because now I feel like with, the topics that I want to talk about and the things that I want to help women with specifically, I've had the privilege of being able to grow an audience and the experience of like at least, what masculine structure and strategy is required to grow and scale these programs. So I am really grateful for that. And also, as I've gone through this, I think about how much of my life and my business has had to change as I've had my awakening. And I feel so bad for people that are like in 9 to 5s that are like soul sucking or like ego driven, like working in finance in New York City. And all of a sudden they have their awakening and it's like everything needs to burn down.
Yeah.
So certainly it's been uncomfortable, but I am kind of grateful for things
For
working
sure.
out that
And
way.
everything is always divine, right? Like everyone's path is perfect and unique to them. And I actually love that you spoke of like that masculine structure because to be honest, sometimes I don't have many people that I can talk to about this. And I want to dive into this. As someone who has built a $12 million business, what do you see as one of the biggest blocks for spiritual healers and practitioners that are really skilled but are
Mhm.
not making money online?
Oh man. That's yeah. So this is kind of like more of the people that I want to serve now because it is something that I notice and something like a superpower that I have is being able to tie in the kind of spirituality with the masculine structure required to grow a business.
Mhm.
And it is like, and this is actually like personally something that I'm struggling with now too, because it feels like I was so masculine and then now I'm so feminine and I'm trying to like rebalance, but it's a lack of structure
Yeah.
like at the end of the day. And this is the first time in my life, honestly, that I've experienced this sort of like feminine, like floaty, like, oh, I want to create this thing, but like, how do I do it? How do I make a plan? And I'm having to like figure that out within myself now. I think it does help to have some sort of mentor or guide as far as business goes if you are very feminine, but I would say also like learning again from some sort of guide, not spiritual guide but business guide, the structures that actually work and the type of lifestyle that you want to live and the business strategy that will support that. So for example, I have always prioritized freedom in my life as like my number one value. And so when I built my online education business, it was really important to me that my business supported that. So I was never doing like coaching as like my main thing. It
Mhm.
was always passive evergreen courses. And so
Mhm.
just deciding like, what is the lifestyle that you want to live? Do you want to be having that, one-on-one or, group container where you can have that high impact? Or do you want more of a flexible lifestyle and sort of
Mhm.
building from there?
Something that you mentioned was like selling passively
Mhm.
and really getting people in your offers. What was one avenue or like what was one method that really worked for you that you went all in and found a mentor and like, yeah, just like went
Yeah,
in to get clients in these
totally.
offers?
Yeah. The structure that worked the best for me was like more of a traditional webinar funnel.
Mm.
So I'm sure I can't assume, I guess that most people know what it is, but it's essentially like a free class where you're teaching for the majority of it and selling at the end.
Mhm.
And that's accompanied with a lot of like post webinar email marketing. A lot of that for me, because it was evergreen, was automated, but you can do this in a live format as well. But I think a lot of people make the mistake of creating an offer and just assuming that if they talk about it on social media or like link link in bio, that people are going to buy it. But especially over the like $300 price point, you need some sort of sales vehicle like a webinar. There's a lot of other ways that people do it. Like nowadays, there's like low ticket to the more expensive online course, but I've always preferred the webinar route because it works on evergreen. That being said, though, I think that we're in kind of like a trust recession. So a lot of people don't necessarily trust those, like the traditional webinars with like the countdowns of like, you have 48 hours to buy. So I think that it's an interesting time to be in this world because you need the sales vehicle, like a webinar, like a workshop, to pitch your product. But you also need to approach it in a way that's really authentic and that you're bringing in your unique voice and story and vulnerability and not relying on things like super masculine, timers on sales pages and things like that. So it's like people are craving that authenticity again.
Yeah, I know. I feel like the sales world has really like changed a lot in the last 2 years because of AI and just like the mass amount of people that are selling things online. It's like you really got to build a relationship with your audience.
1,000%, 1,000%. And it's so funny because, I follow a lot of business coaches on social media and they'll be like, we're in a trust recession. So this is a prompt you can ask ChatGPT to give you 5 ideas for being more vulnerable. And I'm like, we have lost the freaking plot. Like completely, we've lost the plot. So it's interesting because it's like, I feel like AI is only just adding to the fuel of like the mistrust that people have in general with online content. So I think the people that are really going to thrive in, the next 5-10 years are the people that build very authentic personal brands and share their story really vulnerably and do marketing in a way that feels good to their heart, not just works from like a strategic point of view.
Yeah, I've even noticed with myself, it's like people want to know me more, right? And that requires kind of like a whole new version of me because typically I'm really masculine too. And I've always kind of just been like, let's do business online. Like I'm an entrepreneur. I don't need to show everything. But it's funny too, because, very vulnerably talking candidly here is like, the more I do share about my life, the more people fucking like me.
And the more people will buy from you. So it's like,
Literally.
it is like, it's weird because it's like, it is strategic to share more about yourself, but it is also just like, for human to human connection, it is a good thing. But yeah, that's the thing at the end of the day. It's like, people aren't going to buy your programs because of what they're going to learn in it. That's part of it, but they're buying from you because of number one, your unique framework, but number two, because they want to learn from you specifically because they resonate in some way.
Yeah, because there's 1,000 people selling the same thing as you, but they're buying you, like they're buying Christina's course, they're buying Kristen's course because they like your frequency. And that's why I feel, so much of my work is the energetics behind the business. It's the energetics behind your message. And that's why some people, they post something that's like so plain, but like you just always stop the scroll and read what they have to say because you value their perspective and their energy.
Yeah. And you resonate with them as a person for sure.
Yeah. So it's so interesting. I love kind of unpacking creators' minds on like how they approach it because but I feel like these are the conversations that we have behind the scenes, but it's interesting to, have them on a more public platform too.
Totally. I know. And that's the thing I've realized is that like, I used to be very strategic and like, yes, that mindset will help you grow a business, but there has to be some sort of like foundation to hold it all. And so that's why I feel like the subconscious and like the spiritual work is so important and learning how to manifest properly and raise your energy and be a match for what you want. But you can't lean like too far into that. Yeah. Because then you're not doing the aligned action part. Like you need to be taking action and knowing what strategy works.
Yeah. And that's the last thing I want to cover with this masculine energy is something that I've just noticed with you as I was, researching you and just consuming your content for the last 6 months was you are an action taker, right? And one thing that I have really understood energetically about people that manifest very quickly in this 3D reality, they're magnetic because the space between the idea and them taking action is very short. And even myself, like like I was telling you before, you were like, where are you based? I was like, well, I don't
I
really
made this
know.
decision and then I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, like I made a decision and then 10 days later I left San Diego and now I'm in San Francisco. And it's like,
Yeah.
that is just how I live life. Like
Mhm.
I make a decision and I don't wait a month. I don't wait 2 months. I don't wait 3 months. Like I do it as soon as I can because the
Mhm.
inspiration hits. And that's when like the chi of life, like the energetic momentum is going to support that idea into fruition and into manifestation.
1000%.
And so before, you said you weren't spiritual at all. You weren't
Mhm.
talking about manifesting money or manifesting clients, probably.
Mhm.
What was your superpower? Was it that action?
Yeah, 1000%. I was actually having a conversation with somebody like last month, and she was like, "How did you earn so much money online without knowing about manifestation?" And I'm like, "Because I was just taking action, and I believed that I could do it." That's the biggest part about it. I did over
Mhm.
time have a stack of trust of self-trust that when I want to make something happen, I make it happen. I'm absolutely relentless in everything that I do. And so that kind of proof just compounds over time, and
Yeah.
you develop that self-trust of like, I can make whatever I want happen and I can trust myself. But that's the thing that I think a lot of people miss, and the reason why they sit on ideas for so long and don't take action is because you were able to make the decision to move, right? Because your gut feeling and your intuition on that decision was really strong. And if I don't feel like my intuition is that strong, or I don't trust in my ability to make a decision, that it's going to take me longer and I'm going to stir and I'm going to ask for outside opinions
Mhm.
versus like the people that, have an idea, take action, their intuition and their self-trust is really strong. And I feel like that's the muscle that a lot of people are missing.
I'm so happy we're talking about this because
Yeah.
one of the biggest questions I get is like, okay, but how do I follow my intuition better? How do I build the self-trust? And
Mhm.
to your point of like, you weren't even spiritual and you just built it up. It is built in small moments. It's not built in these big moments where I move away from San Diego. Like it's built in the
Yeah.
moment where I wake up and I'm like, oh, I need to rest instead of go to the gym today. And then I trust myself and then I do it. And it's like,
Exactly.
oh, I need to stop teaching this program and I trust myself. It's kind of like trust is built through small moments and it's also lost through small moments too when you don't honor your intuition and then
Mhm.
you're just like, oh, I don't know how to listen to myself and then it just compounds.
1000%. I call it like it's keeping promises to yourself. Like it compounds into self trust and self love too. And
Mhm.
breaking promises to yourself is what erodes it. So it's like it is those tiny little things, and even like noticing when your gut was right too. A lot of times we just sort of like we're like, oh, I was right, but like actually taking the time to notice, because that's, I think, it helps strengthen your intuition.
Yeah.
Also, for me, it's like a lot of time alone too, and like time in nature
Mhm.
helps strengthen my intuition.
Yeah, so good. I love it. Okay, so something that we covered in the beginning, I'm like, whoa, we have a lot to get through.
Yeah.
Energy work has completely changed my life and all of my clients' lives. When you learn how to shift your energy, you can attract more love, money, visibility, success so quickly because this universe is made of energy. I work with the energy from the seventh dimension and it shifts things so quick. So if you're loving this episode and you want to rate the podcast 5 stars, I created a completely free guided energy work to anchor self-love and build confidence. All you have to do to get it is rate the podcast 5 stars, screenshot, go follow Alignment Academy Pod on Instagram, and then send me a picture of your screenshot and I'll send it right over. After you do it, don't forget to DM me and tell me how it goes. Okay, now back to the episode. You mentioned that you had a spiritual awakening very quick.
Yeah.
Okay, where do we begin? What
I don't even
prompted
know.
this? Maybe was it the breakup that prompted
Yeah,
it?
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
So I'm laughing at this because I was not spiritual at all before this. And I've talked to a lot of people about, their own spiritual awakening. And it's like something that happens over like years. So it's like
Mhm.
easier to integrate. But, I was talking to a spiritual guide of mine, and she was like, well, sometimes when the universe really needs you to get it, they will just like, my spirit guides, I honestly believe, just like broke everything about my
Yeah.
life at one time. And then I was just like, had no choice but to ask for help and connect to something higher. But yeah, I think it was last year it was an interesting position because I sort of felt my business not going as well as it had in previous years for a numerous amount of reasons, mostly because I was very disconnected from what I was teaching about. And I had that icky feeling you were talking about. So business sort of not going well. I felt really disconnected from it. I felt really disconnected from myself. I was in a relationship that, great guy, I have nothing bad to say about him, but the dynamic of the relationship, his patterns and my patterns, I just self-abandoned completely. I was just very disconnected from myself. So ultimately, when we broke up, and for context too of like why I was so devastated by this breakup, this is definitely somebody that, we were making plans for the future that I saw a long-term future with. And so when we broke up late last year, it was like all like points of safety were pulled away from me. Yeah. So I had tied so much of my identity to how much money I earned. My value that I believed was in my success as a business person and how much I earned. And I led dating with that. I led everything with that. And then also this man that I loved, I no longer had. So it was like everything that I clung on to for a false sense of safety, I didn't have.
Yeah.
And I have never experienced like that level of emptiness in my life. Like it felt like I had a body, but nothing inside of me. Like I was completely broken. And for context too, like I'm 4 years sober. I've been through, alcohol and drug recovery. Like I've been through a lot. And this was like, that was nothing compared to this. I was like just broken as a soul. And so after kind of, processing a lot of grief for a couple of months, I started to meditate every day. And this is really where I believe things kind of started. So I like committed to only 10 minutes of meditation every morning. And I noticed, obviously like changes in my everyday life in terms of my emotional regulation and, those sorts of things. But what also started to happen was I developed like a very intense and like uncontrollable interest in spiritual concepts. Like it sort of felt like, this is how I describe it to people, that I was like tied down to a train going 5,000 miles per hour towards spiritual awakening that I couldn't stop. Like I had no choice to go back. It was just like, it felt like it was happening through me, I guess, but also to me, because it wasn't like a decision. It was bizarre. It was just like I was drawn to these concepts. I started reading, I started going to like energy healing and just like curious about all of these things. And it started to become around February, March, it started to become really disorienting and ungrounding because the way I was seeing reality and the universe was changing so quickly that I had a hard time like interacting with the world, honestly, like, because so much of our world is obviously very ego driven and there's so much fear and so many masks. And I started to see through it all. And it was really difficult. And so then that was happening. I had my first kind of experience with like Reiki and energy healing that was like unmistakably, I couldn't deny what was happening. And then I had a kundalini awakening, and that threw me for the biggest loop in the entire world. I have so much to say about kundalini. I'm not sure how far you want to go into that, but that experience is still something that I'm trying to process and integrate, and I probably will never really have a full understanding of. It was very ungrounding, but through this entire thing, it was like I had no choice but to make changes in my life. Because up until this point, I was still sort of like, should I shut down this part of my business? Like, what's going on? And I was still trying to like cling to the past and keep it alive in certain ways and just be like, well, maybe like if I just pretend I care, But after the Kundalini awakening specifically, this is like April, I knew 1000% I had to like burn it down. Like there's so much about my business and my life and my identity and image and who I consider myself to be that is just completely different because I couldn't ignore the fact that I had to make changes. And that's why I always say to people, I'm like, spiritual awakening and spiritual development is great, but you need to be prepared because there's a lot about your life that's not aligned. I can guarantee you that. And you'll need to change things.
Oh my gosh, so much that we need to get into. And I want to say, I just want to echo that. It is packaged up as a beautiful, amazing journey online. And it is. It is that. And in the middle of it, it doesn't look like that. Like people don't show the moments that they're crying on their floor and they're having to break up with their friends and they're like, having to have the hard conversations and quit their jobs. Like those are not sexy moments, but that is actually what the dematerialization and like the quantum leaps. I'm like, I have so many episodes on my thing that's like, you don't want an actual fucking quantum leap because that means your entire reality has to dematerialize and a whole new one needs to come online. And that is hard for the nervous system.
Terrifying for the nervous system. Yeah.
And to that point,
Mm.
my audience knows I went through a very similar gut-wrenching breakup
Mm.
now about 2.5 years ago. And it shattered it it brought me to my fucking knees.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I feel you deeply.
yeah, like
Mm.
I didn't even know that I could feel that much pain in my entire life. Like
Yep.
the hardest part about it, and I kind of want to speak to this, is that, these things like money and relationships, you kind of don't know how codependent you are on them until they leave. And I
Yeah.
felt like that was the hardest part for me, was like, I thought we had a really healthy relationship at the time. And we kind of like low key did.
Hmm.
And simultaneously, we were a COVID relationship, and
Mm.
I didn't realize how much of my security was
Yeah.
based in the fact that we were a unit until I was literally alone and had to like introduce myself as just me. And I felt naked. I felt like I'm less worthy because I'm alone. And that was
Yeah.
the time when I was like, this is fucking deep. Like, this is so much deeper than I thought it was. And like, what the fuck just happened to my life? Like, I remember crying on my floor multiple times to my mom and being like, how did I get here? I don't understand how I got here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
It's
go ahead.
so much because it's like so much of your identity and your self-worth is tied to that person, and you
Mhm.
don't realize until it ends, because then you don't know who you are. And I feel like that's very common. But I'm not sure if your spiritual awakening happened after that or not. But what a lot of what I've heard is that when you experience grief and heartbreak that badly, it can trigger spiritual and kundalini awakenings.
Mhm.
Like that level of soul brokenness can.
Yeah.
And so it's like it is a gift once you sort of integrate the whole thing. But as you're going through it, it is hard. And I always laugh at when I see people now, they're like, I'm spiritual. I have crystals and light and love. And I'm like, oh, but have you burned down your whole existence yet?
Yeah.
Because oh my God.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, it's intense, and I don't wish it on anyone. And
Mm-mm.
I'm finally at the place where I can say like that was the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Same.
I am a literal complete different person. Like honestly, if he even saw me, he probably would be like, this is a
Yeah,
different person, you know?
1000%. Because your aura and like you're operating a completely different frequency.
Totally.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I was actually not making, I was spiritual before because I had my
Mhm.
awakening very early at 17,
Mm.
but it was a second awakening. Like I think I've had three big, I mean,
Wow.
that's the other thing. You can have layers of your awakening.
I'm
Like,
done. I'm tapped out.
yeah, girl, just hold on. So I feel like I've had three big
No
awakenings
more.
where you're like, you don't think that you can go any deeper. And then you're like,
Mhm.
whoa, what the fuck? And that same thing that, you described it as like everything that I thought about the world was crumbling. The way that I describe it, I have a visceral feeling in my body, and I can remember every single time I've had this awakening. It
Mhm.
feels like I'm in the moment and I'm reading something or I'm going through something or I'm consuming something, and it
Mhm.
feels like the tectonic plates of my brain
Stop.
are moving
Stop.
around. Do you know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about?
I have said this. So I had this exact feeling when I met my ex, actually. This is how I described it after meeting him. I've said to so many people, I'm like, I felt the tectonic plates of my life shift like under me. And I was like,
You can like feel, I have chills right now because like you can feel your
I feel it.
energetic makeup, like your
Mhm.
consciousness is literally, I feel like moving to another level.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's so fucking weird. I don't know how to describe. I literally
I
have full
know.
body chills
I know,
because
Sam. I
like
know what feeling you're talking about.
it's so weird, and I get like really anxious when it's happening because I
Yeah.
know that after I finish the sentence or I consume
Mhm.
whatever I'm consuming, like sometimes it happened from a book, my very first one at 17, and then you
Mm.
know for the breakup, like I remember the moment I was sitting there like realizing what happened, and I could just feel the
Mhm.
frequency of my body like, oh, you'll never be the same.
Yeah.
Nothing is
And
going to
you
be
just
the same.
know. Yeah.
and and it's like this soul sink feeling because you also know that you're about to go through one of the fucking hardest periods of your entire life.
Yeah. And a lot is going to need to change, and a lot of friendships and relationships will need to be like renegotiated. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's so hard. Do you think, I know this is your podcast, but I have a question for you.
No, yeah.
I'm taking over. Do you think that certain people, like in their soul contract, whatever you want to call it, are meant to go through this? Or do you think that the universe is trying to wake everybody up? And for some reason, just certain people listen.
No, I don't think that the universe is trying to wake up. This is my opinion. This is kind
Yeah.
of like what I've gathered from my guides is okay, so it's actually pretty deep. So let's
I'm
just
ready.
I've actually never shared like this part of me on the podcast. So
Good question.
yeah, great question. Okay, so when I asked my guides about this kind of stuff, what they basically showed for me was that I have a soul map. So
Mhm.
there's points on my soul map that I'm like for like they're destined, right? They're fate. These can shift and the space in between my soul. Okay, so like let's say I have a point here and a point here. The space in between here and here can shorten and it can go. That's like where free will comes in, right?
Yep.
So it's like I feel like I was always supposed to awaken at 17. And like if you look at all the things that had to happen, I mean, it's a crazy story. And I'm like, oh my God, that was so supposed to happen.
Mhm.
And I think that that was like a point on my soul map, right? And then I was in a corporate job and then like I started another like my spiritual business at 22 or 23 and I think that that point, right? Like it could have moved closer or further away based on my decisions and my experiences, but like the fact that I listened, it pulled that next point closer to me. Does that make sense?
100%.
So that's
100%.
what my guides show me is like and that's why I always preach taking action because it's hard to describe when we're not having a conversation like this. But if you're trying to get further along your map and like get a lot done, then you need to actually be taking action quicker so that you can learn the lessons quicker so that you can get to the next step quicker.
1,000%. Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
And then if we take it up a notch of consciousness, in the eyes of source, in the eyes of your guides, there's no rush in eternity. Like
Right.
truly. They're like,
Exactly.
you
Yep.
can get on one point and then like you'll just do the rest in your next life. And like there's only love here.
Yeah. And
And
it's all exactly perfect.
it's all
Everyone's journey.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
also like if you're awake enough to understand the game outside of the game, right? Which like this is our conversation that's talking about the game, which most people are asleep to, then
Mhm.
why wouldn't you play the game better?
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, it is so funny because I didn't even believe, like in, January, I was like, multiple lives, you've got to be crazy. And now it's like I walk around and I see a dude like in his car with like a girl and like doing the crypto thing. And I'm like, yeah, maybe in 6 lifetimes, you know?
Totally. And also that's why I answer the question the way that, you said it. And I thought a lot about that through even like my romantic relationships, because a lot of times like I was always the spiritual one kind of pulling them up and being like, let's meditate and let's go to this retreat. And like one thing that I had to actually full body accept is like, I don't think that that's their path in this life. Like, I don't
Right.
think they're meant to have this crazy spiritual journey that I'm having. And I think that I need to find someone that's like, I really actually don't want someone that's like super, super into it in the way that
No,
I am,
no, me
but I
neither.
need someone that's parallel enough that is doing the growth enough to be able to keep up with me. And
Right.
that's okay if that wasn't those people, because I don't think that anything is going to wake them up to the point that they need to be right now, right? Maybe
Right.
maybe when they get divorced when they're 45, I don't know. That's not
Right.
my business.
Yep.
And like for me, I need someone that is on the path right now. So
100%.
that's where
Yeah.
I've kind of landed with it. I don't know if that
Yeah.
resonates.
No, that definitely resonates. I think about this all the time. I'm like, I cannot have somebody that's like super spiritual. I very much am attracted to like very masculine men,
Same.
but somebody that is on the path, because a lot of times what happens is like when you awaken enough, you become like either an opportunity for other people to grow, an invitation for other people to grow, or you become like the biggest trigger in the world. And so
Yeah.
historically, I've really only been with men who haven't like explored themselves necessarily that much emotionally. And being with women like us, you're going to have to be willing to do at least a little bit of the work, simultaneously accepting that like everybody is exactly where they need to be on their journey. You can't
Totally.
push someone further along than like they're wanting to themselves.
Yeah, and it's such a personal journey. It's like now that you've been through it and you've been through the craziest, kundalini and spiritual awakening, something that I always preach is like, I don't force anybody on this journey because this is not something that you
You
force
don't
someone to
maybe
do.
want it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm like, you got to opt into this shit. Maybe your human won't, but your higher self needs to opt into it. And
Yeah.
you can't just force people to go on this journey. It's not
Mm.
something that is a decision, really.
Yeah. My advice always is like, be careful and go slow.
Yeah.
And then it's
Yeah.
like, how did this even happen? I didn't even believe in astrology a year ago.
Wow. Oh my God. That
Like,
is, yeah, that's a crazy whiplash. I mean, are people around you, like
it's
the people
wild.
close to you, like
What
the
the fuck
fuck?
just happened? Yeah, because I have a couple of friends that were more spiritual than I was, like lifelong friends, and they're like, "Whoa, didn't see this coming for you." And I meet friends now, they're like, "You're so feminine, you're so like, your aura is so beautiful." And I'm like, "Damn, if you only knew me like, 5 years ago, like going from being addicted to alcohol, the lowest frequency possible,
Mm,
to how much growth I've had." And I feel like you know, what I've learned also from it is to just be so much less judgmental of where people are
yeah,
because people can really change. If they're in enough pain, they can change. And if they're intentional about it and deliberate about it and committed to becoming their highest self, like they can absolutely change, but you can't force that to happen.
totally. I actually want to talk about that a little bit, your addiction to alcohol and getting
Mhm.
sober. I mean, I'm sure that in a sense that was a crazy personal growth experience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Why, I mean, this is a weird question, but like,
Mhm.
why do you think that you got addicted and what
Mhm.
was the thing that was like, I gotta stop?
Yeah, I mean it's so funny because every single year I have a new kind of theory of it.
Hmm.
Uh, I grew up in an amazing family. I have a 0 on the ACE score. If people are familiar with the ACE score, like there was nothing in my life that was like big T trauma enough to trigger addiction. But I think what it was always for me is that I am a highly emotional and sensitive person. I have very, very, very big feelings on both ends. Like if I'm a little bit sad, I'm sobbing. And if like the sunset's a little too pretty, I'm sobbing. I have a lot of feelings. And
Mm,
I have always been very intuitive. And I think that I was not necessarily given the container to be able to understand how to like hold and regulate those emotions. And so things like substances are the easiest way to
mhm.
sort of tamper down your emotional range and make
Totally.
you numb. And I discovered those, 15, 16, something like that. And then, kind of went through college and found other people that drank and used like me. And then what tends to happen is like you're drinking, and then all of these micro traumas and ways that you're self abandoning happen because you're intoxicated and just becomes like a shame, like
Mm,
never ending circle. And so when I got out of college, I moved to New York City with all of my friends, and the partying continued for a couple of years. But then, as people were sort of moving on with their lives, I still, and I've never had an off button. Like from the very first drink I had, I've never had an off button. But around, let's say 2018, 2019 is when it got really bad because not only did I not have an off switch, but I needed it like every single day. So it became very isolating. I lied and manipulated a lot of people in my life, didn't have an off switch. I was completely delusional that I had a problem. It impacted my relationship, I mean, certainly my self esteem was like absolutely abysmal, non existent. And so I got sober in 2021, April 2021. And that was like really the beginning of my like therapeutic journey, we'll say, of like unpacking relationship patterns and
mm.
learning how to emotionally regulate and all of this stuff. But a lot of people call addiction like a spiritual void. So, maybe I was always meant to go down this path. And that's why I think it happened so abruptly for me because in the 4 years that I was sober, I think I could have spiritually awakened earlier, but in like full candidness, a lot of how I spent the first 3 years was very much still looking for validation outside of me in other ways and avoiding the void and all of that. And so I think truly the universe is like, she's not getting it. She's not getting it.
Wow.
So
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting, back to our conversation about like the soul points. It's like, okay, you just didn't really,
exactly. I was
it needed to be a
delayed.
little, yeah, it was delayed a little bit.
Yeah.
with that, so I'm curious, you were building
Mhm.
that business while you were like addicted
Mhm.
to alcohol. That's
Yep.
crazy.
And what's really funny is that the way that the business was structured was so reflective of my internal world because
Mm.
my business was evergreen, like I said. I wasn't really interfacing at all with students. And it was just like passive income that felt very disconnected from my customer. And so I
Interesting.
was in a, I guess, good position, sort of, because like it didn't require me to show up and sell because the ads and the funnels were like working for me
Oh, wow.
24/7. And so it was honestly perfect for me to continue being doing what I was doing. And so yeah, that's what's, really interesting about it. And I see myself, doing evergreen again, but obviously with a very different energy behind it and other
Mhm.
offerings as well that give me that like human to human connection.
I'm curious now with your new business, and I kind of want to talk about that, even though we've skipped over a lot of parts, but I'm just like going with the flow right
Yeah.
now. With your business now,
Mhm.
what is your position? And then what is the new, more connected way that you want to be interfacing with your
Yeah. I think for anybody that's going through a period like this where they know that they are outgrowing where they've been, but don't know where they're going,
Mhm.
I just want to say that like the number one thing that's been helpful for me is having patience
Yeah.
because that's been the biggest lesson for me in this time period is like wanting to figure out what's next
Yeah.
and being so frustrated with myself that like when I sit down with a whiteboard or like a notepad, like I can't make it happen like I used to. And so I've had to really learn to like be quiet with myself and be patient with myself and give myself grace and follow like the little breadcrumbs of joy that are going
Mhm.
to show me where I'm meant to go and understand that sometimes are not meant for having a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a week plan
And if you don't
because
have
that's
clarity, you're not supposed to.
exactly. And it will
Yeah.
come when you're meant to. And so that's where, my spiritual connection has helped a lot, like talking to my guides, having conversations, asking for signs. And so at this place, I'm still in a place of one step at a time, figuring it out. But I do know that I'm very much drawn to doing a lot of the subconscious and mindset work,
Mhm.
teaching, weaving spirituality and subconscious work in with a strategy is
Yeah.
overall what I'll say. So I want to be doing, courses again for sure. I believe that's my superpower is being a teacher and a guide and a mirror for other people's growth. But also doing more in-person things like retreats. Travel has always been my biggest passion. More group programs and also just leaning more into the personal brand because I do believe I have a story in multiple aspects that can help so many people. So, whether that's a book or being on more podcasts like this or whatever it is, just putting myself and my story out there more.
That's so beautiful. And I really loved what you said about the void because I shared with you, I also burned down a lot of the programs that I had built the foundation of my business on.
Mhm.
And it's like people still needed those programs, but they just felt so out of alignment. I'm like, they're not me
Yeah,
anymore.
totally. Yeah,
They're
you're like,
just
I
like,
just physically can't sell this anymore.
well, I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't even struggle with that anymore. So for me to be like talking about something that I don't even, it just felt out of alignment. And I think that's what people don't understand is that, or I think that people don't talk about, maybe they don't understand it, but they don't talk about it is something that's been really hard for me behind the scenes as a spiritual
Mhm.
entrepreneur is because my soul is so intertwined in my business. It's an extension of me. And as I die and versions of me die, like my business goes
Yeah.
with it. And so
Yep.
I can have this beautiful launch plan set up that I do every couple, but it's like I
Mhm.
can't do it. I have to allow my business to evolve with me. And
Yeah.
every single time, it's not only a death and rebirth with me, it's like, oh, fuck, now my business too. Like, come
No,
on.
exactly. And a lot of people don't get that because it's like most people in the world, they switch like on work mode, like their work is so separate from them as like a
Yeah.
soul and as an individual. And
Mhm.
similarly to you, I'm like, I need to be so passionate and so aligned with
Yeah.
what I'm doing. And so when I feel myself personally changing, I'm like, no.
And it's like a blessing and a curse because, right, we talked about like, me sharing my life helps my business. But it's like if I'm not inspired with what I'm doing, I'm not going to be
Mhm.
sharing myself. It's going to affect my business. It's going to affect my money. Like
Yeah.
and that's it's funny. I was talking to one of my best friends and she's like, Kristen, your words are so powerful. Like you need to be careful with like anything that you do or say. And it's funny because my entire brand is
Mhm.
alignment. It's called Alignment
Yeah.
Academy. I have Alignment Academy, the membership. My first
Yeah.
program was Alignment Mastery.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because
Mhm.
I manifest that. If my life is out of alignment,
Mm-hmm.
nothing will work.
100%.
I am like having a master class in my life with alignment. And it's like, it's so funny too. My business will speak to me through the money I make, through the inspiration that I have, through the content. Like when I'm in alignment, I came to San Francisco, my shit blew up and I wasn't doing anything different. I was just back in alignment, you
Yeah.
know? And it's
Yeah.
funny how our soul talks to us like that.
1,000%. Like everything flows when you're aligned. And that's the biggest thing is people are like, what are the strategic reasons why, you shut down your business? And I'm like, I just wasn't in alignment. They don't get it. I'm like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, it's an energy and it's so it's the thing that you can't explain. Like that's what the energy is. But
Totally.
when you know, you know.
1,000%. 1,000%. Well, good for you for like listening to that gut feeling because it takes a lot of courage,
Mhm.
especially when something's been working, for so long to listen to that gut feeling that goes against like anything logical
Yeah.
and to trust in the void
Yeah.
too, that like it's happening for a reason and that there
Mhm.
is light at the end of the tunnel and taking one step at a time and following the breadcrumbs of joy is what I call it. It is a masterclass in trust and surrender.
Totally. If you've been waiting for my next retreat, it's officially here. If you haven't heard or you haven't listened to the podcast episode, I'm taking you to Peru with my soul sister and mentor, Daniela Gill. Last year, I went on Daniela's retreat and had the most life-changing experience. And I feel so called to host a retreat and bring you here with me. The Sacred Valley is the most perfect place to not only unwind, but reconnect with God and yourself. When you join us in Peru, we'll be having a Wachuma ceremony, drinking cacao every morning, hiking the Andes Mountains, learning how to cook Peruvian dishes, temazcals, prayer ceremonies, Akashic workshops, intuition development workshops, and so much more. The dates are January 23 through 30. If you want to join me and Daniela in Peru, you can book a call with the link below. Well, you mentioned that you had pretty big like whiplash from the spiritual awakening and the Reiki and then the kundalini. Let's get into that a little bit. So let's start with Reiki. How did you find it? What happened? Tell us the tea.
Okay, so Reiki, I went to I want to say, I think this is around like February, and I was in a place where I was having a lot of like physical issues, mostly digestive, that were really weird for me. And I also felt like very emotionally sensitive. Like if somebody mentioned my ex's name, I would just like start bawling. Like it just felt like everything was like simmering and I had a lot of grief to let go of. So I booked a Reiki session with a girl who's now my dear friend in Miami. And it was the first time that I had experienced energy work as far as like feeling so different before and after, like feeling how my energy being manipulated was actually changing my emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crazy. Like I describe it as like before and after Reiki, Christina. And that was my first kind of experience with energy work. Kundalini was a completely different story. Kundalini was the most intense thing I've ever been through in my life. And I still don't have a lot of clarity on what exactly happened.
Yeah.
Or really like this is a complete tangent, but I'm sure you're like familiar with Kundalini and like psychedelics and everybody's kind of like curiosity and obsession with these things. They are great if you're ready to integrate and process and your nervous system is ready and you know what you're getting yourself into. But there's also a lot of danger in these things as well. And I feel like there's a missing part of the conversation there as Kundalini is becoming really trendy. And I'm like,
Be careful.
be careful. Yeah, truly. So I don't know how much you want to go into Kundalini, but yeah.
Do you want to share more about it? Like,
Sure. Yeah, I
yeah.
can. You're familiar with
Yeah.
it? Okay.
I think my
Yeah.
audience is too. We're pretty deep
You're
in the
pretty
weeds here.
spiritual. I know. Okay, good. Yeah. My audience is like, sorry, I don't I'm just kidding.
You're like, Kunda what?
Is that like vinyasa? Okay. I'm kidding. I'm giving them no credit for anything. I'm just like making massive assumptions here. Okay, so yeah, Kundalini. I've been doing Kundalini yoga for like 4 years on and off because it was recommended to me by my therapist when I first got sober. So I've been doing Kundalini yoga for a while. And I believe looking back that when my breakup happened is really when this, I guess, started more intensely because Obviously there was a lot of grief and a lot of sadness that came with the breakup. But for like 5, 6 months afterwards, I was crying like 4 times a day.
Mhm.
And it would be like I would be out with friends and I'd be having a great time. And all of a sudden, I would just feel like I need to melt down. And it became like a joke in my friend group how often I was crying because it was weird. It was like I was unearthing like definitely my own lifetime of
Mhm.
of trapped emotions, but like maybe multiple lifetimes, to be honest, because it was
Yeah.
like so intense, so emotional. There was so many things from my past coming up, memories that I had forgotten about, things in like my family dynamics that were like being re-triggered and being refelt. And it was bizarre. So, and then I had weird physical symptoms, like I was having a lot of vertigo, digestive issues, like I said. So I believe it was sort of triggered by the grief from that breakup.
Mhm.
And then I was in Bali in March and April, as you do after a breakup. And for context too, like in January, I had done a CAP, a kundalini activation, and nothing really like quote unquote happened. I just let go of a lot of emotion and,
Mhm.
saw a lot of like visions and things like that, but nothing crazy. So I go to Bali and I booked a kundalini activation the day after I landed. And this is where I believe that there needs to be some like responsibility in terms of like practitioners, because there is no reason that getting off a 20-hour flight, I should be at a kundalini activation. Like my nervous system was fried. It was just not a good, situation. And I assume, maybe these practitioners think that people know what they're getting themselves into. I have no clue. So it was a group CAP process, and all of us are kind of lying in a circle, and there's music playing, no breath work, no psychedelics, no one is touching me, like completely just laying on the ground listening to music. And as I'm lying there, about like 30 minutes in, I start feeling heat up my spine, and my arms are just laying on the ground. My arms start like shaking, like uncontrollably, like electricity is running through them. And I'm trying to like mentally stop it because I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I'm so logical brained at this point. I'm like, how could my arms be shaking? Nobody's doing it. What is going
Yeah,
on?
yeah.
Feel free to interrupt me, by the way, at any point in
No,
this story, because it's a lot.
we're locked in.
We're locked in. Okay. So the electricity thing is happening. And at this point, I'm letting go of a lot of grief. A lot of tears are coming up and I'm welcoming them. I don't, have any issues with that. And then more of the kind of Kundalini goddess feeling starts, and that's a great feeling. So loving that. And then I'm lying there, and again, nobody's touching me, nothing is happening. All of a sudden, I feel like those like hospital paddles that
Mhm.
people like
Mhm.
resuscitate people with? Like somebody has put them on my chest and is shocking me like 5 times in a row. So what this looks like is I'm laying on the ground and my chest is rising off the ground 5 times in a row. Like it feels like I have a car, like an electricity is like plugged into my chest and I'm being like shocked. So it looks like I'm having a full on exorcism, honestly.
Wow.
My head is on the ground, my chest is off like 5 times in a row. And I remember I was trying to stop it. Like my logical brain was not leaning in. She was like, what is going on? Stop it. I think I was saying out loud, like, what the fuck? So after that happened, I, for the next 24 hours, had a really, really dark, dark energy. And I still don't know whether it was something that was resurfaced inside of me or if it was something from the room I was in. I
Yeah.
was obviously very energetically sensitive, so
Open,
I
yeah.
still don't know what it was. But a dark feeling, like doom, borderline suicide-y, and out of nowhere, like
Yeah, like
nowhere,
entity, just
entity vibes.
whether it was yours or somebody else's was like attached to you. Yeah.
Yes, 1000%. And it was like unmistakable. Like I felt like just dark. So then I messaged the practitioner and I was telling her, I feel really like dark energy. I feel off, like something is like wrong. I go back to her for some like gentle Reiki, like grounding, right? My energy to do something. I don't know. So I go to her house and I'm like lying on the ground. She's doing Reiki. And at this point, I am incredibly, incredibly sensitive. Like she would touch my, around my like sacral chakra and my stomach would start cramping like immediately as she's touching
Wow.
it. She would touch my head, immediate headache. Let go, no headache. And my arms are doing the thing again. Like I felt like I was like I don't even know, just like a sensitive little energy thing. No way for me to describe. You know what I'm talking about? Just like,
Yeah.
yeah. My problem with this the whole time has been like labeling it bad or scary. But this is when I basically started to feel for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, on and off, but definitely like at least half of the day, completely out of my body. Like
Mm,
I have talked to people who have done psychedelics before and they would say, "Oh, I know what feeling you're talking about."
yeah.
But remember, I've taken no psychedelics. So I'm like, for example, looking at my hands and it feels like my awareness is actually back here outside of my body and I'm looking through my body at my hands. And I had no clue what was going on. Like I felt so disconnected from reality. Time was completely warping. I feel like I would think about friends and family and they would feel like not my own.
Wow.
It was terrifying. Like, and
Yeah.
the only other time I'd felt like that was when I had a really bad brownie trip in college. And so I started to panic because everything that everyone was saying about Kundalini was, you're never going to be the same again, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, oh my gosh,
You're
is
like
this
stone
like,
cold sober. So you're like,
I
when the
am
fuck does this end?
exactly. I've never taken a psychedelic like during that, process or ever really. I've like microdosed once, but whatever. I mean, I've never taken a psychedelic. Like, so I have no idea why
Yeah.
it's happening. Like, I'm freaking out,
Wow.
intense fear, intense paranoia, like really scary. I was like going to fly myself home and be like, I need to be institutionalized. It was really scary. And I felt like my experience wasn't like fully understood by the
Mhm.
practitioner. I felt like, a lot of what I was being told was to like just ground. And I'm like, I feel like I'm losing my actual mind right now. And it was what I now know looking back, kind of like Kundalini psychosis, a little bit of spiritual psychosis. And I thank God because my therapist actually, she's Western educated, but she's super educated in like energetic modalities and Kundalini and all of this. So she would send me like 20-minute voice notes because I was in Bali at this point, just being like, this is exactly what happened. Your consciousness ratcheted way too high and your nervous system was
Wow.
not prepared to integrate the energy. So it was like I blew a fuse basically.
Yeah.
So a lot of what happens in CAP is like the Kundalini energy is activated and that can lead to a lot of creativity and sensuality and intuition and great feeling. But to my understanding now, I basically supercharged the rest of a Kundalini
It
awakening
was like too much
and
energy for
too much energy.
yeah, for the battery. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
I just got off a 20-hour flight. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was 2 weeks of on and off feeling like completely outside of my body. And then for about 2 months afterwards, I would say I gradually felt more and more normal, but occasionally I would get anxiety that I was feeling the feeling again. And then I would kind of
Mhm.
like trip myself in that. So it's taken a minute
Mhm.
to integrate it.
Wow. Yeah, I think that this is such an important conversation because, things like, I mean, I'm a huge mushroom girly, but like I
Mhm.
never push them on people. Like you
Yeah.
have to be called to it and you have to be in the right state. I'm actually
Yeah.
very even picky. Like I've had to tell people that I don't think that they're ready to come.
Hmm.
It's very, very important that you're like finding it at the right time. And so
Hmm.
I'm just so happy that you're good now.
Same. I thought I was like going to need to be in a permanent institution. But this is why I say because I've had so many conversations with people about psychedelics because it's similar to, Kundalini awakening at the end of the day is meant to awaken you, similar to a psychedelic, right?
Mhm.
But unless you're prepared to integrate that properly and use it as a vehicle for healing, having an awakening without integration and without healing and without people to help you through it
Yeah,
can
it's
really make you lose your mind.
I'm so passionate about this conversation because, even with I host ceremonies, and
Hmm.
the reason I do them retreat style is because I want to be with you for the next 3 days after that
Yeah.
happens. And I want to help you close every loop and ground back into reality. And like,
Hmm.
my biggest experience that blasted me open, which I consider my second awakening, was an experience like this. And I couldn't speak to people for 3 days after it was my tectonic plates shifted
Hmm.
and my experience of reality was so different. I literally couldn't go outside. I literally for 3 days, I
Yeah.
had to be in my house and be like, what is
what is
reality?
going on. Yeah.
Who am I? I don't
Mhm.
know who I am. I
Mhm.
just experienced something that was so disorienting. And it's so important that you have someone that can walk you through that and has been through that. And so, yeah, I think that this is a
Yeah.
really important conversation to have for anyone who is, wanting
Mhm.
to do a crazy spiritual experience. Yes. And make sure you're doing it in the right space, when you're in the
Yeah.
right energy, when you feel really
Mhm.
safe, when you've done your work so that you can integrate it really well. It's like, it's so
Yeah.
important.
100%. And I would also say too that like if I had not done as much, I guess like therapeutic and somatic work as I had done up until this point, I think it would have been really bad, really, really bad. Like, because I imagine sometimes, people that, again, like working in finance, are in this relationship because, she's pretty and looks good on the outside and
Yeah.
have done no
No
internal
reflection.
work. Like, and then they go do an ayahuasca ceremony or they have a spontaneous kundalini awakening. Like, I became convinced through this process that like most people that are in mental institutions are probably just having really unintegrated spiritual awakenings.
No, it is though.
Crazy.
Like they're pretty tapped in, but it's too much for their system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, to like wrap that conversation up a little bit, like what do you think your biggest, let's put on a positive spin on it. What do you think your
Mhm.
biggest gift has been from it?
Oh my gosh. That's where I struggle with this conversation because it is overall actually the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was also the most terrifying thing that's ever
Yeah.
happened to me.
Yeah.
So I would say on the other side of Kundalini awakening, and I also don't want to say it is because of the Kundalini awakening, it's because of how much work I've done on myself, it's because of my spiritual development, it's because of everything together. But Kundalini, I do believe, kind of supercharged it. I feel like my baseline frequency is so high, like
Mhm.
consistently. Obviously, I have my off days, but I'm so fast at raising my energy again and getting myself back to a better emotional place.
Totally.
My intuition's crazy. I'm super creative, super
Mm.
feminine, which has been great. But also, as we talked about, I'm like, I gotta get some of the masculine structure back. And magnetic. Like I just feel like my aura is completely different. My confidence is completely different. I'm not trying to prove myself to anybody in relationships and business, nothing. And that is a very new feeling for me. And it's
Wow.
taken a while to like get used to feeling this way, honestly.
Are you back to dating now?
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Is it quite different now that you're like in your feminine and you're spiritual
Oh
and
my God.
like
It's so different. I feel like my dating pattern, I'm not sure if you can relate to this or not, but my dating pattern has always been a lot of overgiving, shape shifting, proving my worth and proving my value and really like getting a lot of my sense of worth from the other person. And now that I'm in a place of like my life is so full and I am so confident in who I am, it's a place of receptivity
yeah.
now, of like leaning back and just seeing how good it can get and not being like you prove your worth to me, but kind of like, operating more in a place of like feminine power
Totally.
and knowing what I want and having really high standards and not being afraid to communicate those, not in a materialistic way, but just how I want to be treated.
Yeah.
So I've
Yeah.
done like, some manifestation stuff of like writing out my list. And it's not things about, height and money and things like that. It's more of just like how I want to feel in it.
Hmm.
And I feel very intuitively like that person is on the way
Totally.
and or here, or I don't know, but
Oh,
we'll see.
oh my
What about
gosh.
you?
Yeah, so I have started dating again, and it's so interesting that you said that about the pattern. And something that I was just kind of honestly unpacking while you were saying it is I think
Mhm.
that the reason I'm very similar to you, where I like was a super shapeshifter, people pleaser, like wanted to just like, bow my hands down to
Yeah.
my ex-partner.
Yeah.
And but in a very weird way, but you know what I think it is? I think it's because we're so masculine, we're used to doing things that like so well. I think
Hmm.
we just wanted to do the role so fucking well.
Totally. I'm just
Like
trying to get an A+ in the assignment.
literally, like we're like, I'll just be the perfect girlfriend for you,
Right.
Like,
While
and
you're being a C.
yeah, like, and so I think it is like out of this place of love, obviously unworthiness as well. But
Mhm.
I do think it's like from this place of we're just so used to knowing how to get shit done and like do it the
Exactly.
way that it needs to be done, that we accidentally put that into our relationship.
Exactly.
And
100%.
It's interesting. So yeah, I'm dating again. I've been on a very deep feminine healing journey
Mhm.
this year, and it's funny because San Diego was such a portal for me to learn how to be in my feminine energy. And
Mhm.
now, right now, in this moment, I'm in San Francisco, and I am moving so much slower than everyone here. Like
Mhm.
I sleep more, I don't work as much. And I have right now, I have a little bit of a back injury, so I'm like only doing yoga and walking.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had a soul contract with San Diego to like teach me how
Mhm.
to be in my feminine. And now I'm here and there's actually so many men. And like I'm just in this full
Mhm.
receptivity of like, show me
Yeah,
what you
it's
got.
good. It's
And
good.
I'm not gonna chase, I'm not gonna go
Yeah.
after you. And it
Mhm.
definitely is a different way of relating.
It shifts
Um,
everything.
I
It
know.
truly is like the saying of like when you don't need anything, you attract everything is
Yeah.
100% true.
I was talking to one of my guy friends, my newer guy friends here, and he
Mhm.
was like asking me about my love life, my dating, and I was telling him like what I expect, and he's like, "So you're telling me unless I pursue you with all my heart and soul and make it super clear that I want to date you, we're just friends?" And I said, "That's
Yeah,
exactly what I'm saying."
that's exactly correct.
Yeah, and so like it's been nice to just again,
Mhm.
I'm in the same place as you where I am so done in the chase. I'm like, I will
Yeah.
be chased or I will be alone, and I'm so happy alone. So it's fine.
100%. 100%. And it's like, it's interesting because more men fall off faster
Hmm.
or they rise to meet the occasion.
Yeah.
And it just opens you up, I feel like, to a caliber of men that you didn't have access to before. At least is what I'm experiencing. Like a healthy masculine.
Yeah, and it is, I will say, it's more lonely because you don't keep a
Yeah.
roster, right? And this
Yeah.
is the part that I don't really share publicly, but why the fuck not? Like
Let's do it. Yeah.
I don't keep a roster because
No.
if it's a no, it's out of alignment. I
Yeah.
just would rather just cut it off and give you your energy back, give me my energy back,
100%.
I don't entertain things that are just
No.
not like an actual like I think that, I felt in the frequency of my future partner and it feels very like it's going to be what's the word of like not chivalrous, but it's going to be a courting,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if you're not courting me, like we're not dating.
No, exactly. And you know what? There are certain things now where I look at there's my perspective on dating and romantic relationships has changed so much since my awakening. But one of the things is I'm like, things like rosters or things like it's a numbers game. It's so low vibe.
No.
It's so low vibe.
No. Yeah. Not with infinite intelligence on your side. Like
No,
you
it
only
is
need
not.
one.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Exactly. I'm like, somebody else up there is orchestrating my dating. I don't need to be on Hinge swiping away. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just delusional. So,
I know. I saw this TikTok about like the dating apps and I'm not
Mhm.
against the dating apps, but it
Yeah.
just like it literally like is just in my mind. I can't stop
Mhm.
laughing about it anytime that I think about it. It was like the dating apps will connect you with people you were never supposed to be connected
Yes.
with.
It's
Like the
so
fucking
true.
truth to
It's
that.
so
Like
true. Oh
I
my
was never
God.
supposed to fucking run into you.
Never. It's exposure to all possible timelines, and
Yeah.
I don't want to be exposed to 90% of these timelines.
Yeah, I'm like, I needed to only be on the timeline that my current frequency is on.
Exactly. I don't
Thank
want
you.
to see Gen Pop.
Yeah, exactly. So good. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, honestly, I feel like we have so much more to talk
I
about. This
know.
was so good.
Legitimately. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel like we need to like have a friend chat too if we end up
I
in the same
know.
place in California.
We totally do. And yeah, so for anyone who wants to stay connected on your journey, because I know they're probably so curious now, they're like, wow, there's a lot here. And
A lot
I
going
listened,
on.
I listened to if you guys haven't seen her podcast, we'll link
Oh,
it
thank
below.
you. Yeah.
And your first episode of your new season is like
Mhm.
really a great recap into like the ins and outs
All of this.
of all of
Yes.
this, her
Yeah.
little ego death that she went on in the
Yeah.
last 6 months.
NBD. NBD just
Yeah.
burned down my whole life. Yeah, my podcast is called She's Wealthy. Well is spelled Well. And then you can find me on Instagram, Christina Galbato.
Mhm.
That's it.
Heck yeah. All right, guys. Well, we'll link
Got no
everything
offers
below. Yeah, yet.
yet.
So maybe
Yes.
when you listen to
Coming
this, you'll
soon.
have something
Coming
cool.
soon.
Yeah,
Yes,
amazing.
exactly. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you guys in another episode and have a great week.
Thank
Bye.
you.